Yeah, so thanks for being here. So so my name is Jessie. I'm leading the People and Culture team at Weaviate.
And my name is Marion. I'm the Developer Experience Program Manager at Weaviate. And we at Weaviate believe that great companies and great communities are not just about tech.
They're about people. And that's what we will cover today. So first we will kick off in why company culture and values matter. Then we will share a little bit more on, a little bit more Weaviate-centric, like what do we actually focus on. We will share a little bit more on how we build engaging communities and cultures. And then we want to close off with some practical tips for you how you can do it yourself.
Exactly. So let's start with why should we even bother, right? And let's dive a little bit about how we make decisions if we use a software tool or if we use a product or if we buy a product. It's very natural that you think when somebody like you trust, like a friend or a colleague, gives you a recommendation, you're more likely to try it out. And that is because people do buy from people. And I want to dive into that topic, why values and cultures matter and why the buying experience is a really big part on a very important topic that's like super important to all of us, which is shoes. Let's talk about shoes, right? I took the example of the Nike Air in that sense because it's a very expensive shoe, a very premium shoe. And we want to elaborate on the buying journey, on the user journey, on a 2x2 because our CEO just lost 2x2s. So you can look at a product from two different angles, right? The competitive position of your product, which is undifferentiated versus differentiated, and the pricing. It can be very cheap, but it can also be really expensive. So how do we sell a premium product, a very expensive product that still people want to buy? So looking at the lower corner, shoes are made out of fabric. And you can buy fabrics in larger warehouses, and they are very cheap to get. And you get a lot of different colors, so they are commodities. That is table stakes, right? And then the next level, you can buy a standard sneaker, like a white sneaker, just like the ones I'm wearing today, at every shoe store. Like you can go on every internet platform out there and just get them. They are medium priced, easy to get. There's you don't have to worry about it, right? You're not really having an experience or anything when buying a white sneaker. Then there's a little bit a level up where you're like, okay, but I don't just want to buy a random white sneaker. I do want a little bit of a service around it. I want an advisor to tell me which kind of shoe does fit my foot. Which kind of laces do the people wear usually with a white sneaker, right? So you get all these services around the product that don't really necessarily have to do anything with the product itself, but it's just nice and convenient for you, right? And then, when thinking about the Nike Air, you don't just think about a shoe. You think about Michael Jordan playing in his last basketball game, winning the game, right? And his whole success came from wearing the right kind of shoe. So it's not you thinking about the shoe, but it's the shoe made Michael Jordan successful, right? And he's like, oh my gosh, just because of that shoe, I was able to jump higher, be the best of myself. So when looking at the product journey or the user journey, let's compare service versus experience. When you're going into that shoe store, it's very nice. Can I get that clicker? Okay. It's easy to get there. It's easy to go into the store and get some advice. And it's very convenient, right, to buy a shoe at the shoe store. But the experience is something totally different. It's memorable. You think about a whole event around the product. And it also kind of touches your feelings. It makes you feel excited about the next basketball game, for example, or, the next marathon you're running. You want to spend time using that product. You want to spend time running in your shoes. You want to, you just want to spend time in that whole experience. You get tickets for the next basketball game. So what I'm trying to say with the simple example of shoes, that it's not just about the product itself, right? It's really about the experience you have when using the product. It's the experience you have when buying the product. And this really comes with people. So I'm giving over to, oh, you have like, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you then, how do you create that experience, right? So as Marion already mentioned before, people buy from people. So we really believe that in order to get that great experience, it is about, you get that via the people you interact with and the people you engage with. So, and that is something that we at Weaviate find really important. So if people buy from people and you get that experience via people, then it's all about like, how do those people behave and how do you interact with each other? So then we're going to a little bit more into the different topic, because people behave in different ways. And we think from a more like a product and a company perspective, that behavior is shaped by company culture and company values. And that really determines like how you interact with each other and what you do find important in building those experiences. So let's talk a little bit more about company culture and company values. So what does it actually mean? So we believe company values, it's really the foundation of everything. So it is what a company, so for example, Weaviate, what connects us as a group of people. It is how we make decisions on a day-to-day basis. It's how we interact with each other, and it's how we actually build relationships. So in everything we do on a day-to-day basis, our values determines how we behave and how we interact. So at Weaviate, we have 5 core values, which you can see on the screen. I will not dive into every single one on a detailed basis, but I think 2 of them that are most important to us. Those are the kindness part and the collaboration part. So that is something that we those 2 we find really important. So just be kind to each other. And we really believe that determines the long-term success of a company. And we believe at Weaviate as well, like you need to collaborate, you need to work together in order to make the best product, to give the best customer service, and to make our company successful. So that is actually that guides us on a day-to-day basis. But company culture, it doesn't live in isolation, right? So it really impacts like the outside world as well. So it determines how we interact with users, with our open source developers, with our customers. So how we behave, it really shapes those relationships, but the other way around as well. Like we want to connect ourselves to customers and open source users that share the same values, and that impacts our internal culture as well. So it's all like a big ecosystem where we just feed off each other. So we really believe in making impact. Creating that experience is only going to be successful and very memorable and personal if you focus on company values. And for us, it's really to focus on that kindness and collaboration part. So then the question is, it's very fun, values, behaviors, but how do we do it actually? So we believe creating a strong company culture, a strong community culture, you do it in very different ways parallel. So you can do it top-down via strategy. It is how you interact on a day-to-day basis. It's how we collaborate with our community. So we want to give you a couple of examples that just makes it a little bit better on how to picture it. So building value-driven people programs, that is what my team and we are focusing on. So what we do on a day-to-day basis, everything that's like people or HR or culture related, we look it through a lens of culture. So if you take an example of recruiting, so if we are hiring people, we want to make sure that we create a great experience with kindness and collaboration and transparency and trust when we are in connection with candidates. So what we do is, we believe you can interview people in a kind way. There should not be like any interrogation. We believe to have equal conversations, be kind to candidates. That gives away how we are as a company, but I think we really we can assess candidates if they're a good match to our company. But at the same time as well, we want to be transparent throughout the interview process as well. So we will share if we have other people that we're interviewing. So the candidate is aware of like, okay, I'm almost in, because we believe as well, candidates, they actually spend time and effort in getting to know us. So we want to be transparent about how many other people we're actually talking to. And then we believe that in the onboarding part as well, like it's all like onboarding people. So when people join us and in the first weeks and months, we really focus on that kindness and collaboration part. And that's something that is really fun. We always ask feedback after someone is a month in, and we actually get very nice feedback. Like everyone is so kind, and everyone is really here to help me be successful. And it's the same with like the developing and the rewarding part as well. So at Weaviate, we really believe that you need to collaborate in order for you as a person to be successful in your job, to make your team successful, and to make Weaviate successful. So that is something how we have structured our performance conversations, how we have structured our salary increases. But at the same time as well, like if we assess performance, it's not about only like the software you develop or the new functionalities that you have created, but it's about like, hey, do you actually behave according to our company values? So people will be assessed to which extent you're transparent and to which you trust your colleagues. So those are just a couple of examples how we build value-driven people programs to create those programs that really look from the lens like, hey, are they aligned with our company values? And then at the same time as well, like if you look at how you build strong company cultures, it is about giving recognition as well. So we like to do that in public. So we are a fully remote company, so we do that via Slack. So we have this channel where we encourage people like, hey, if you think someone did an awesome job and I want to give some appreciation, we have all these messages where people compliment each other, but like, hey, thank you for helping me on this. Thank you for creating impact for customers. Well, and we have an emoji culture as well, so you can see a lot of emojis, but that is the way how we want to give appreciation and like openly compliment people, because we really think that bonds people together and that really creates a strong company culture. At the same time as well, like if you look at how you create company culture and to really like drive that through values, it's when you work as well. So when we have engineers who are working on some functionality in a sprint, or we have a customer who has an incident, all of our engineers are actually collaborating on it together to make that work for customers. And once that incident is solved, we don't want to point fingers. So what we do is we evaluate together with a postmortem. But it's so important to look at it from a learning perspective. So like, what can we do differently together in order to avoid it in the future? So that's why you can see this meme. So we really believe in blameless postmortems, just to make sure that we approach it in a kind way and learn from each other. And then as well, so we like to give awards as well. So we give each other that public recognition. But at the same time as well, like we want to make sure that we give shout outs to people who are creating that impact for our customers. So every quarter, we ask our people to vote, like, hey, who do you think created the most impact for your user? User can be an open source community member, it can be customers, but they actually vote. And who gets the highest vote? They will be the most user-centric person of the quarter, and they will get a nice gift. So that is one way where we really want to like embrace our values and give credits and sometimes nice awards. But it's not only about work. So at Weaviate, we believe in having fun as well. So we really simulate like cross-team collaboration, having fun together, really building those relations with each other during company trips, building rockets, having nice hikes together. So that is something where you see where our values don't only happen when you work on projects together, but when you're having fun as well.
And Jessie talked a lot about how we do it internally, right? Like from a bottom-up and top-down approach. But also as an open source company, we try to live in the open. So at our monthly all hands, for example, we do give that appreciation Jessie just talked about to each other, right? Saying like, hey, who helped you being successful this month? And we created a program that's called Weaviators internally, And because we are an open source company, we said this is also something we want to transition out to our community members. So on a very frequent basis, we are looking at people. A lot of big companies have it like they have champions, they do have advocates, but we really look at it from a lens of our values and our culture on which of our community members actually are kind to people and help people to thrive inside our community. And that can be in our open Slack channel, it can be in our forums, it can be at events. So we are really trying to connect to that people. And in order to come back to that experience, we try to focus on developer experience. So we are really eager to create a holistic experience to developers out there. We are trying to be user-centric and put us in the shoes of our users. So what is it actually they need in order to be successful, right? And at each step of their learning journey, like no matter if they're just exploring Weaviate, for example, or if they're like expanding into like how to build AI native applications, we are trying to give them educational material. We are trying to be there during weekly office hours, and then we are trying to listen to our community members by running surveys or going into one-on-one user feedback interviews and circling back their feedback into development. And just last week, a new colleague just said, like witnessing all of that process around user test interviews, said, wow, that's a very feedback-driven development cycle, right? And that is exactly what we want. So this all comes down to being very personal. So no matter what we do, like if we are creating office hours, we try to see the persons behind our users, but also we come from a very personal perspective. So in all our visuals, you can see like there are a lot of people on there that actually work for Weaviate. And we are trying to be personal throughout like workshops, right? Like workshops in person, but also when we are creating educational material for LinkedIn or for Data Science Dojo. It's always about the people behind that. During our events, we are trying to create an experience for you as the members, and try to just listen and talk to you after our talk or after or in between the event, and even in the digital world, right? In our open source forum or in our Slack channel, we are trying to be kind and help people to succeed, and we are really listening to what are your problems and then creating educational material for social media that comes from our learnings, right? So we are sharing the knowledge we're gathering through research and everything. And even our stickers are kind of a personal experience. Each sticker has a little story behind it, and you can see a couple of examples on the screen.
Yeah, so circling back to people buying from people and creating that experience, it's all about how it makes people feel, right? So, because in the end, like, people want to enjoy working at a company, people want to enjoy using our product. You really want to give them a good feeling. So that is something that we find really important, and that is something that this is a quote from Bill Markline. So culture is how people's hearts and stomach feel about Monday morning on Sunday. And probably, maybe you have the same, like on Sunday evening, like sometimes like, oh, I'm really excited to start again, to work tomorrow and to collaborate again and to working on really cool stuff. So that is in the end the ultimate goal that we have with creating a strong company culture, is how we make people feel. And this is just an example. I don't expect you to read everything. But what I mentioned again, so when we look at onboarding, we really try to make our efforts to make people feel excited about working at Weaviate. So this is a message that someone who joined a couple of months ago, after a month, he actually shared this in our Slack channel. So we always ask like, hey, you are a month in, share what your experience is. So this colleague, his name is Scott, he actually said like, okay, I couldn't ask for a better place to work. Everyone, I felt really supported about with everyone who I have worked with. Everyone is so helpful. They will drop everything in order to help me. The culture is really special. It's really about like being a team player. And this is exactly what we're aiming for, about people feeling generally excited. So this is really, again, internally focused on how people feel about our company.
And that feeling, right, that our employees or our colleagues have really trickles out into the community. So they do talk to their family members, and coming back to the very beginning of our talk, saying, you know, if a colleague or a family member gives you a recommendation for a product or for a tool, our employees also talk to their families, right, and are talking about the experience they are having internally inside the company, and then giving that back to our community members by just being very kind, being supportive, being helpful. And that shows in a lot of comments we get back from the community as well. So our CEO, for example, just was approached by someone from the community asking him, why is everyone in your company so kind? Or we are really a joy to work with, because we are trying to step into the shoes of our users, right? So what is it actually you can do, right? Like, we talked a lot about how we do it on a daily basis, but what is it that you can do? So we have a couple of very easy and simple takeaways. So first of all, try to be personal, right? With everything you do, try to put yourself into the shoes of your you know, of your colleagues, of your users, and make it about a personal relationship, trying to understand how they feel and what is it they need to achieve. Because if you interact and engage on a personal level with your users, it will bring you a far way, right? And if you do go the extra mile, then there's something happening, what we call unreasonable hospitality. So giving your users more than they expect, right? They might expect documentation, but if you're just going one step ahead and say like, I'm helping them not only with documentation, but they can jump on an office hour every other week, you know, to look at their individual problems. That's just more than they would expect, and that's what's creating the experience for them, right? It really brings a wow factor to your users and to your colleagues as well, right? We are trying to go the extra mile during these postmortems or during incidents. We are really trying to help each other out. So if you give more than is expected, you will always have a positive response to that. And by sharing your knowledge, and you probably are all really knowledgeable about your in the fields you're working in, just sharing that knowledge with people in the community is already a really good step to give people educational material, right? To help them out and trying them to help them succeed in their own on their own way.
Yeah. And it's about what we mentioned as well, like just embrace your values from all different levels. So as mentioned, included in everything you do on like a people program perspective, like during onboarding. But at the same time as well, like if you want to build that strong company culture, it's so important that the leaders of your company embrace it as well, right? So if you see that behavior from your CEO or from any other leader, you will lead by example, right? So when you see that your CEO or CTO, if they're being kind and collaborative, that really encourages you to be that as well. And then at the same time, like just communicate in a kind way, in a collaborative way. So just try to do that from every single perspective.
Yeah, and also inside your community, right? Like you talked a lot about how our onboarding experience is really special. Well, we do make an effort in our open source Slack channel, like to onboard people and trying to guide them through the Slack channel and educational material to just get started.
Yeah. And it's about showing appreciation. So I think it's all about give people kudos, give people compliments, because I think everyone, they like a compliment once in a while, but really being very intentional about that, saying thank you to people for the help, and that goes a long mile as well.
Yeah, and even in critical situations, right? You can, like, if you show appreciation, it really goes a long way and will leave a positive feeling behind. And this is how we interact with each other every day, but also with our community and how we build our community. And we would like to finish with a sentence or a side that really sticks, right? People will really forget what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Thank you. Very inspirational talk. So I'm looking just if we have some online questions. Not yet. So I will take some questions from.
Thanks a lot for the inspiring talk. I have a question regarding the values, especially in companies that are beyond startup and reach a company size where it's becoming harder and harder to live these values in a genuine and authentic way, and where sometimes, I've seen it in past companies as well, where internally these values are really perceived as being just an instrument to shine on the outside, but not really believed in from the inside. How would you react to that? How can you prevent that?
Yeah. I can elaborate a little bit on that. So before Weaviators, I worked at a very big corporate, a big European bank, where I just experienced the same, right? We were interviewing people had certain expectations coming in, and then it was like a nice front, and then they came in like, huh? So I think that is maybe... I think value is all about behavior, and behavior is one of the most difficult things to change. So I think that's why I'm very grateful being part of a startup. Like, I joined when we were only with 15 people. Now we are with 120. So what we really did, what we did from the beginning is really have our leadership aligned with this. So we created our values. We included our co-founders into it, and literally everyone, in order to like, does it make sense? And in the end, like, values is not something that you're like, hey, we want to be like that. You really see like, what are the typical behaviors and what unites us? And this is how we came to these 5. So just to come back to your question, how do you make sure? It's all about having leadership aligned. And I have a lot of tough conversations with the co-founders, like, okay, you're doing this, it's going to be reflected on this. So it's having... it is having leadership leading by example, and to have a stop conversations, because I think that trickles down into the entire organization.
Yeah, and I would add up to that, like in smaller companies, it's obviously easier to have the top-down approach. But I was working for IBM. That's like a 400,000 people company. And we did have like very similar values. And what is it we can do as employees of such a big company, right? It's really trying to live these values every day. And I have to say, it starts with small little things, right? It's about going the extra mile for your colleagues. It's when you're in customer situations and there's like a critical situation, or they are like evaluating your product, and and they just aren't sure. It's going that extra mile and giving them just a little bit more than they expect by jumping on a call with them, right? And trying to understand, okay, what is it you're trying to achieve? Let's see, how we can help you, no matter like if you choose our product or not. If they choose your product or not, who knows? But they will remember how you made them feel, and your colleagues, right? In your team, like if you show them that you value their work and that it helps you to succeed, and you actually tell them a thank you each day, it will make like your team flourish, right? And just increase team culture. And then it's much easier to talk to your boss and your manager and being like, hey, look, these are the values we are embracing. This is how we live them. Why don't we try to educate others around us and trying to create an ecosystem around these values, right? It's little by little, step by step. But I think even in bigger companies, it is totally doable. And I have seen it at IBM, and it's working.
Yeah. And I think especially like, as mentioned, like culture is a collection of the group of people. So yes, it's important to have that leadership buy-in, but it comes from bottom up as well. So what I did at my previous company, I think the most important part is, again, listen. So and to have like an ambassador somewhere a little bit more in like the leadership or the management layer. Listen, like how are people actually experiencing things on a day-to-day basis? Listen to feedback and then bring that in again, and I think that will definitely help as well to really live by your values.
And a personal experience I made, and maybe a couple of people can relate, right? It can be tough to have discussions like in your personal life, in a relationship or in your marriage or something, right? When there are like critical situations, you just don't agree, whatever, and then there are like just like fronts on each side. When you try to listen and you're giving feedback by telling how you feel, even with colleagues, right? When you're telling them, hey, I perceived this situation in that kind of way and it made me feel like this, it's much easier for them to understand where you're coming from and to think about what can they make better next time in order to like avoid a situation like this.
We still have time for questions. I will just take one from the online audience. How do you manage conflicts and unpleasant topics? How is your feedback culture in this case?
Okay, so the question is, how do we handle conflicts and how is our feedback culture? Yeah. So I think it's all about, and it's one of the most obvious ones, but one of the most difficult ones, it's all about communication. So I don't like conflict, so I try to avoid it, but I think as you're working at a company, you really need to have it. So how we handle conflicts, it's all about creating a safe space to being able to share. And there are a lot of techniques on how to actually give feedback. But just to have a tough conversation. I think what I really try to do from more like a cultural perspective is to give people ownership of sharing that feedback yourself. Because when you find it very difficult to give feedback, then it's very easy to go to your manager and your manager solves the conflict. Or people come to me and my team like, hey, this person is... So we just want to give people the ownership of like, it is your personal experience, so please have that conversation yourself. So we really stimulate having those difficult conversations. Sometimes I try to be there as mediation if it's really tough conversations and people are really scared maybe to have that conversation, and that's why we try to support and to like help people as well. And feedback culture, it's so important, and I think a lot of times people have the assumption like, oh, giving feedback is something really difficult because I need to say something very hard, but in the end it's all about, I think feedback really helps. So what we try to do is, especially with managers, have regular conversations with your people. Say something positive, so show appreciation. But when they can do something different, share it as well. Because in the end, if you don't share it, people are not aware of it. So we try to embed that feedback culture in kind of like making it more small and trying that people are having that like weave that into their one-on-ones or in any conversation that they have.
Yeah, and I would like to add a personal example. I just had like, I think it was last week, where I had to give, like I was gathering user feedback for a feature which we are rolling out, right? And there were like a couple of points I just wanted to make sure the engineering team is understanding. But that was critical because it's not always positive feedback, right? So, or positive things. So I was discussing it with my manager beforehand, and he was like, yeah, but put yourself into the shoes of the engineers as well, because that's who you provide feedback to, right? They put a lot of work into X, Y, Z, right? So I stepped a little bit back out of my little perspective, like a very focused perspective, I would say. And was like, okay, but what was it what worked well, right? Yes, you can, like critical situations can always be tough, but if you also look at a perspective, what's actually working well? Because not everything is always only negative. You can say like, hey, this is actually something that really works well in that kind of situation. So I think we should embrace that, embrace the positive behavior. And this is what I experienced during these user interviews, for example. It made people struggle. Maybe we can ease it out to focus a little bit more on what worked well versus trying to ease out the things that go that create conflicts or create like negative feelings. And if your feedback is precise, concise, and you try to make it actionable for the person you're giving the feedback to, and you're taking into consideration if that person actually wants to accept your feedback or not, right? That's also a very important point. Asking them if they are in the state and the mood of getting feedback, because sometimes we can have tough times, and I might have a tough time and I can just not handle negative feedback at that moment, but I can say, hey, come tomorrow. And I might be better able to reflect on what you just said. So being really precise, but also always giving the perspective of how this impacts me, how it makes me feel, really goes a long way. And it's very solution-oriented in that sense.
And maybe just to give one final example, so actually our CEO mentioned to me a couple of weeks, he said like, it's actually unkind if you don't give feedback to people. Because in the end, you want others to be successful in their work, right? And if they're not aware, if they can do something different, then you just let them be. So it's actually more kind to share that observation and to share what they can do differently in order to even be like a high performer, or even to become better in their job. So that's something nice as well. Like maybe people really value feedback. Like it's always like there's always so much scary context around it, but in the end, like it is actually going to be very helpful.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I was wondering, how do you deal with people that maybe have a hard time fitting in the culture, and maybe they're even criticizing it, but maybe not coming to you to tell about it? Like, how do you handle these situations, and without sounding imposing, or without being really an element of conflict between the culture and the people who are fighting it? Like, have you ever had this kind of situation? How do you deal with people struggling with your culture, struggling to fit in?
Yeah. I think the most honest answer, like we have had a couple of situations where people were not really matching well or blending in well with our culture. And in the end, we let those people go. And that's something that, that is a very strong opinion that our two co-founders have. Because I think in the end, so there's two sides, right? So from a company perspective, you think like, hey, someone is not really matching with their culture, and it can be seen as toxic. And we have seen that literally in some of the engineering teams, where someone was the opposite of being kind and collaborative, which was causing like stress, anxiety for other colleagues. So in that case, we made a very hard decision. Actually, our CTO said like, sorry, but we need to let you go because this is really not working. But from the other side, I think it's again very important to have a conversation, because maybe people are not aware. And I had a different event last week, and we were talking a little bit about like hiring people at companies. I really see it as you as a person and a company, you need to be compatible. So you need to, like, your experience matters in order to do your job, but you need to have like a match on your personal values and a company values. If there is a match, then there are always two people getting frustrated in that. So we had people where it was really struggling with the culture. We had honest conversations about it. And then in the end, we have seen with all those kind of situations, in the end, like maybe it's better to say goodbye because you are not being happy and we are not being happy. So, and in the end, of some of those people, I actually talked with them like maybe 6 months after. And he said like, yeah, it was in the end a better decision.
And I want to add, right, like the first choice is not letting them go, like right at the beginning. There are a lot of conversations up front about feelings, about how we can get that connection, that bonding back, right? What is it? What activities can we do in order to like integrate somebody if they feel like excluded from the team or something? So there are a lot of activities you can do. It's also like as part of a team, right? You do have colleagues. Try to reach out for a coffee chat and try to understand, especially in the remote world, how it is today. Try to reach out and understand, like, how are they feeling? What's like, you know, how was their weekend? How was their day? That really helps people to bond in and be integrated and included again and feel part of the team. Then you really mitigate those like conflicting situations. But in the end, as Jessie said, right, if somebody really has like strong opinions about the culture not being a fit for them, does it really make sense for both sides to struggle along for like a long period of time? Because that will just be a negative experience for that person as well as the company, right? You always have to consider finding those compromises on a way where it's a win and a healthy situation for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Marion and Jessie. So I think you can give them a big round of applause for this nice talk.